Good evening, happy Thursday. We're getting ready to start Miracles with a Twist, an evening of opportunity to go deeply into the Course in Miracles as a way of life, as living a Course in Miracles, not just reading about it, not just talking about it, but finding a way to truly apply ourselves so we can live a Course in Miracles and the principles that it brings us to, this place of higher consciousness, the desire to truly connect with the divine. And we do that by beginning, joined together in song, dedicating our hearts. A Course in Miracles says, first thing in the morning when you open your eyes, dedicate your day to God, to the divine, by saying, here I am, here I am. Tell me where to go, tell me what to do, tell me what to say and to whom. And we start our time together by offering our hearts to one another and to the divine. Here I am. Here's my heart. And so I invite you all to just take a nice deep breath and relax into the beginning of this evening together as we sing together, Here's My Heart, Lord.
Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Speak what is true. Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Speak what is true. I am found, I
moments and just have silence within. Speak what is true, moving away the voice of the ego so that we can hear the voice of spirit. That's what these evenings are about, and that's what all our days are about, is learning to just go beneath the noise of our trivial mind. I was going to try and quote that exactly. Lesson 47. Just moving into a place of connection with spirit and with a desire to truly know the truth for ourselves. So welcome everybody. Hit some hearts. Let me see the love. Hit some hearts. Say hello. Heart, heart, heart. And I'll know that you're there. I cannot see. I've got Pam doing some monitoring. Hopefully if you've got questions, we'll be able to answer them, and we'll try and make sure that we keep some focus on you as well as on the lesson for the night and the movement of spirit within. So as I said last week, we're going to start moving into the final section of the workbook. Part 2 is for the rest of the year. Part 2 of the workbook is a series of prayers and reminders of our dedication. It's no longer about just thinking. It's about making a dedication to feeling the movement of spirit and moving into our lives with that direction, that guidance of spirit. And so every year I get to this part and I have an opportunity to review how have I done up to this part, up until this time. And this is why I'm still doing it almost 30 years later, is because there's never a perfection of self. As long as we are in these bodies, as long as we have these ego attachments, as long as we have areas where we still have reactivity, and that's why we continue to come back to the practices. And so this next part of the book, the workbook, is very specific on how we can incorporate these practices into a way of being. And it's no different than any other truly dedicated spiritual path. Any dedicated spiritual path will move us towards seeing everything as sacred, everything that we do as a divine task, as a divine opportunity to move ourselves beyond the trivial, but to live in the mundane, to be able to live in the mundane and see it as sacred, to be able to live in the mundane and say that this is my opportunity to show up, to walk through the trials of life. In fact, there's a story I'm going to tell you about the trials of life that just came to my mind. But first, I want to do a little bit of an introduction. So if you don't have the book, don't worry about it, because I'm not going to be reading line for line. I'm just going to be going over a few things. But if you do have the book, I'm in the workbook where it says Part 2. If you're in the FIP edition, it's page 398. If you're on your Kindle, I don't know what it is, but it's after lesson 220. It would be after lesson 220. So we're not actually chronologically on this part. It would come on the 9th of August, but I'm moving ahead. I'm fast forwarding so that we can catch up when we get together again next week. So that we'll already be doing part 2 of the workbook. So part 2 of the workbook starts on paragraph 2 by saying, now we attempt to let the exercises be merely a beginning, for we wait in quiet expectation for our God, and He has promised to take the final step. So what does that mean? That means that we're not trying to control anything. We are just being willing, open vessels to the movement of spirit within us, to the guidance, to the voice even, to the nudging, to these little nudges that take place in the course of the day that we can follow and realize that we are doing the work of spirit, regardless of what it is that we're doing, regardless of what the mundane part is, we can still be doing the work of spirit. So down to paragraph 5, it says, now do we come to God with His word upon our minds and hearts and wait for Him to take the step to us that He has told us through His voice He would not fail to take when we invite Him. When we invite Him, when we are really, truly open and ask for God to enter into our hearts and our minds. It's a way of inviting in a friend, a caregiver, a family member to say, I do want you here. I want you here with me. And then who would say no? A loved one would not say no to you because you are beloved. You are the beloved. It says, God has not left his child in madness, nor betrayed his trust. Has not his faithfulness earned him the invitation that he seeks to make you happy? And so we offer it now. We offer it now. So what that means is that we're getting to a point in time where we have these building blocks within us, these tools that we know that we have, that we can reach for. But we also have the choice to not reach for them. We have the choice to let the ego take over, to let the voice of the ego be that which dominates us. And so this part of the lesson, which takes us to the end of the year, lessons, is asking us to apply these ways of being so that it becomes second nature, just becomes the way we think, the way we interact in the world. And so it reminds me of a Sufi story I just heard a few days ago that I think illustrates it pretty well. And as you probably know, Sufism is a form of mystical study, just like A Course in Miracles is a form of mystical study. So there was a Sufi teacher that I was listening to just recently, and he was saying that our job on earth is to build a throne within our hearts, so much to the point of building a mansion within our hearts that will allow us to maintain a connection with the divine, with God. The building material for this throne, which grows into a mansion, is the ways in which we walk through our trials. Because life will always have trials. Life will always have difficulties. Life will always have the least expected happen. And then how we respond to those trials is the building block. So let's say we go with last week's lesson, do not defend, do not attack, right? So you have this opportunity to defend yourself or to counterattack what you think is an attack, and instead you decide to be mindful, understanding, caring. So if you're just mindful, understanding, and caring, then you get a piece of material for your building block, right? You get a material for the throne, for the mansion that you're building. But when you don't, you're just lacking the material. It's not that you're punished, it's not that you've done something bad, you're just lacking the material that you need to continue building this throne within your heart. Now, of course, the miracle says we have an altar within our heart. And a lot of the mystical studies say that there is a connection in our heart to the divine, and that our task is to truly discover it. And so the Sufis say that as we build this throne, angels surround us. Angels surround us and bring us peace, bring us to a place of peace. And so while the Course is telling us that we need to find this place of true connection, we do it through the ways in which we have evolved spiritually. So if we've evolved spiritually, then instead of reactivity, we have some sort of loving response to a circumstance, to a difficulty. And that is the building block within us. So we start building our throne. And that's the only reason we're here on this earth, is to interact in a way that brings a higher consciousness to the earth, to the world. And so we just do our own little part. We just do whatever it is we can where we are to raise spirits, to raise our own consciousness. And I use this term a lot, it's wise selfishness. It's wise selfishness to concentrate on yourself, to bring yourself to a place of peace, to walk through your trials by overcoming the ego's reactivity so that you find a place of peace within yourself. And then as you do that, you become peace in the world. You become light in the world. You become a light worker. So we're trying now to understand that the upset is something that we can take a step back at and look. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to not have a knee-jerk reaction. We're trying to be so well endowed with spirit and with these practices, and that they become so second nature to us that we don't have the same reactivity, that we start seeing a change in how we are now responding to things through the trials of life in a way that may not have been the way of the past. Because now we're starting to see it differently. We're starting to see with eyes of love, with eyes of compassion, with what they call Christ vision in A Course in Miracles. We're attaining Christ vision. So when I was looking at the commentary for this, we're gonna hear a bang. Yep, there it goes. That was something fun. Yeah. The Workbook Companion by Robert Perry says a little something to say about the introduction piece. It says the goal of our practice at this point now, we're moving into a deeper level of dedication. So the goal of our practice is to completely retrain our minds. It is to become so habituated to listening to the voice for God that it becomes natural. It's something we do without even thinking about it. It's the first response to every temptation. So what's the temptation? The temptation is to react to the trials of life in a way that is not loving, that is not from a higher consciousness. And so it is now moving us to this understanding that we are training our minds so that it becomes a habitual way of seeing and thinking, that when something happens, we automatically go to God. We automatically go to, what would Spirit do? What would higher holy self do? How am I being guided? How is this particular trial an opportunity for me to rise above my old way of doing things, the ego's way of doing things, the reactivity's way of doing things? So that's what we're moving toward. The goal is to respond to every ego thought without fear and instantly bring it to a holy place where we meet God in our minds. The long-term goal of our practice is to arrive at the place where life becomes one continuous holy instant. So it doesn't become such a rare occurrence that we have like, oh, I have this connection with the divine because I had a really nice connection with my spiritual family, or a nice song, or a nice meditation, but that it becomes a way of being, that you can touch that holy instant within you. What is the holy instant? The holy instant is when you have that miraculous change of consciousness, a miraculous change of how you're seeing things, and suddenly you do see things differently. So there might be that coworker coming down the hall that usually aggravates you, but now you're seeing them like a brother or a sister, someone beloved and divine, and you can see it now. You've changed your vision, and it's not something that comes with difficulty anymore. It's something that comes natural. It says the goal of the Course has been to bring us to this kind of direct experience with truth. Instead of words, we need but feel His love. Instead of prayers, we need but call His name. Instead of judging, we need but be still and let all things be healed. The most important thing to be healed is our minds. Did you have a question?
Plenty of them.
Yeah, plenty. You want to start with one?
Well, I do my lessons in the morning, especially talking about ego, like you're saying, and then I go to my workplace and face the challenges, and just feel like I just right in my face immediately.
Yeah.
Thinking, and I guess the struggle I have is how to stop that right then and there and get a hold of how I should be. But I have to process it. I gotta go back and do my lessons. I wish I just.
Yeah, but that's why it's spiritual practice, and that's why we keep coming back to it, because I think there's very few of us who've actually attained that instant holy instant in all situations at all times. But what I have found, and what you've probably also found too, is that there are some places where it's harder than others. So it may be that there's lots of areas in your life where you really are seeing a change in yourself. You really are seeing that you're looking at life differently, and you're reacting differently. You're responding instead of reacting. But there's a couple of Achilles heel areas, and those are the areas where we still find ourselves struggling We still find ourselves suffering. But the good thing about it is that it's a heightened awareness. Like, you know that that's your area. You know that because of what you see, and I know what you're talking about. You're talking about seeing abuse of animals and some horrible situations. So it's hard to just say, oh, well, I can see peace instead of this, when you're actually seeing and witnessing suffering. So the Course isn't telling us to pretend that suffering isn't out there. It's telling us to notice how we are and who we are in it, and how we're responding to it. So you get upset. You see something horrible, you get upset. That's okay. It's normal. It's human. What you don't want to do is turn into someone who's so bitter and angry and upset with what you see that you go stalking the bad guys, that you go doing things that are hurtful to other people. You're not doing any of that. You're just doing what it is that is absolutely normal in the process of having a compassionate heart. And that goes for all of you. There's areas where we still have to struggle a little bit more because we are compassionate beings. We see suffering, we see heartache out there. We suffer. We know that there are things that we would like to see differently. There's a bigger picture here where we know that this is not the ultimate truth of our world, that the suffering that is out there is something that we can do something about as much as we can if we choose to. So you do choose to. You do choose to help with the suffering. You do choose to make a difference. And that's what we're called to do. We're called to make a difference. So, maybe you volunteer for a company, in your case, where you help animals that have been abused and abandoned. So you're doing your part. We all find a way to do our part. So it's not about beating up ourselves because we got upset about somebody else or something else. It's about just paying attention to noticing that this is a trial. This is an opportunity for us to look at how we are seeing the world and to not get to a point where we're generalizing anything that's happening to one group of people or to the situation, thinking that it applies to everyone, because we don't really know. Not everyone who's abandoned an animal was torturing the animal. Not everybody who's left an animal did it out of unkindness, and we know that. So whatever the situation is, there's ways to see it differently. And if there's absolutely no way to see it differently, then we can at least extend our compassion and our caring and do anything that is possible for us to do to make a difference in the world. There's a lot of things that we can do right now to make a difference in the world, in social injustices, and vote is coming up. You vote the way you think is the right way for your particular concerns in the world. Any questions out there? Any questions? Okay, so then I wanted to go to, let's see, paragraph 7. It says, "And now we wait in silence, unafraid and certain of your coming. We sought to find our way by following the guide you sent to us." So the guide is the Holy Spirit, our own higher holy self, because as we're weeding through the voice of the ego, we're hearing more clearly the voice of Spirit. And it is a weeding out process. It is a process of, just digging out all that stuff that seems to be the loudest. The first and the loudest voice is usually the ego's voice. So it says, "Now we wait in silence. We do not know the way, but you do not forget us. And we know that you will never forget us. We ask, but that your ancient promises be kept. We will with you in asking." We will with you in asking. That means that we surrender to the will of the higher holy self, which is ultimately for us to be happy and for us to be at peace. So the way we're finding our happiness and our peace is by going through the trials of life in a way that helps us see better the light, to see better the vision of Christ, to keep moving ourselves. Call it anything, the eyes of Buddha, the eyes of Christ, the eyes of Shiva. It is the eyes of a higher holy self, the eyes of a higher way of consciousness to look at things endowed with light. endowed with an ultimate understanding that you are in this body to raise the consciousness of the body. It's not just about this, it's about the consciousness and beyond. So we're learning to surrender. We're learning to surrender, to have trust that there is a voice that breathed life into us, that gave us our opportunity to walk through these trials, to be who we are in the world. Which brings me to another story. One of our seminarians gave a talk a few weeks ago, and she told this story about Krishna choosing a flute from bamboo, and Krishna is often depicted playing a flute. In fact, hang on. So here we have a statue of Krishna. See, playing the flute. I'll leave him here for inspiration. So she was telling the story that Krishna was going through the fields of bamboo, trying to find the right bamboo to make a flute. And finally he found one that he liked, and he cut it down and he whittled it and he made a flute. And it sounded beautiful, just sounded so beautiful. But the other bamboo that remained alive and well were concerned that this bamboo suffered. And so they asked it. I'm not really sure this is the way the story goes. I have to add Grace Telesco. So they said, well, aren't you upset that you were cut down and whittled? And the bamboo said, I am empty inside. I'm empty inside. It is the breath of my Lord that gives my life meaning. I mean, that's what we're doing here. We're emptying ourselves of the ego so that we become empty vessels for the voice of spirit, for the breath of life that comes to us from the divine to give our life meaning. Not because of what we do from 9 to 5, but how we do what we do from 9 to 5. How we show up, how we interact, how we love, our acts of kindness and compassion. All of that we're prepared for when we truly find ourselves in a place of willingness and trust that we can be this conduit of spirit in the world. Spirit's voice. So we immediately go into forgiveness. When we're looking at the introduction, the first thing it says before it actually starts the lessons, it is ask, what is forgiveness? Why? Because A Course in Miracles is always reminding us that forgiveness is the tool, right? So we want to look at how are we going through life's trials? How are we responding instead of reacting? How are we raising our consciousness? And it always comes back to using the tool of forgiveness. It's like a quantum physics shift. A quantum physics shift, or just a quantum shift? It's a shift within us when we truly start to see things differently and we start to forgive the trials because we recognize the importance of them. And so instead of being upset, we appreciate them in our lives because we know that they have a higher, holy, divine purpose, and then we can forgive them. Instead of going into all the details of why we can't, we just recognize that it's an opportunity, and then we forgive our own reactivity, we forgive our own way of seeing that was not the truth. So it says, an unforgiving thought is one which makes a judgment that it will not raise to doubt. Like refusing to doubt your judgments. You just decide the way you see things, the way you judge them, the way you perceive them, that's it, and I'm not going to change my mind. That's an unforgiving thought. You've raised your judgment to a place of non-doubt. The mind is closed and will not be released. The thought then projects outwardly, tightening its change so that distortions are more veiled and more obscure, less easily accessible to doubt, and further kept from reason. You know anybody like that? Or have you ever been like that? It's like you can get that there's times when people are just, I mean, right now we're seeing that in, like, politically. People are just so locked into their way of thinking and judging and upset that it's like their minds are chained and locked into a prison of unkindness. When we unlock those chains, we open our minds and we forgive the angst, we forgive the upset, and then we feel at peace, and then we can proceed without so much restraint, just holding on to that ego, just holding on to that ego mind that wants us to just take a stand in judgment, a stand of judgment. You know, if you're going to take a stand for anything, take a stand for peace. Take a stand for loving, for bringing light into the world, for being a conduit of light and love and peace and kindness. Take a stand for that. Not a stand for your argument. You know what? In the end, it doesn't really matter, right? Because it's just ego. And the whole thing about forgiveness is, it's almost like forgiveness is like that magic eraser that takes your grandchildren's crayon markings off the wall. You know, it's like magical. It's like, what's in that stuff? And that's what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is like a way for us to wipe away all that crud of reactivity and judgment and upset and unkind things toward ourselves too. Toward ourselves and toward others. So it says, an unforgiving thought does many things. In frantic action, it pursues its goal, twists and turns what it sees as interfering with its chosen path. Forgiveness, on the other hand, is still and quietly does nothing. It offends no aspect, nor seeks to twist its appearances. It merely looks and waits and judges not. Very similar to what we were talking about last week, right? Do not attack, do not defend. To be able to get to a place where you can just be at peace with people disagreeing with you, not necessarily fighting you, but not agreeing with you. Sometimes it's just something just that simple that can really trigger you, you know, depending on who's disagreeing with you. You know, you can get triggered by that. So we're trying to find this place of peace within ourselves by forgiving that part of us that wants to go to task, to take things to task. So, how are we doing? Any questions?
Oh, lots of people coming on, though.
Hi, everybody. I'm glad everybody's with us. Send me some love, hit some hearts. Let me see your heart. Let me see your heart. So, I want to make a correlation with one of the chapters that I came across. I sent this out for those of you who are on my text. You got this quote earlier in the week. And I want to take a closer look at it. It's from chapter 8. If you have your book, if you don't have your book, don't worry. It's from chapter 8, section 3, called The Holy Encounter. And it says, when you meet anyone, remember it is a holy encounter. As you see him, you will see yourself. As you treat him, you will treat yourself. As you think of him, you will think of yourself. Never forget this, for in him you will either find yourself or lose yourself. Wherever you meet someone, it is a holy encounter. So all these opportunities to judge, not judge, forgive, not forgive, love, not love, all of these opportunities are choices that we make all the time, all the circumstances, every day. And it is a holy encounter that we often forget. We get this spiritual amnesia because we get upset or we get triggered by something or somebody. And the Course is reminding us that it's always a holy encounter. It's always an opportunity to see yourself in that brother, in that sister, and to thank them for bringing to you whatever it is that you need to overcome, that you need to love within yourself, that you need to forgive. And that's why we get to a point in this Course where we want to start our day with a dedication to doing just that and to being that way, to understanding who we are and how we are at any given moment, and to be able to end the day with a review and a dedication to start the new day, the day to come, by moving ourselves from this. Stephanie, one of my other students, said this, from a to-do list to a to-be list. Who do I want to be tomorrow? How do I want to be? How do I want to interact with the world? So that you review your day, you review your practices. Now these practices get stricter and stricter, because it's not just like first thing in the morning. It's about going throughout your whole day, remembering your lesson, reviewing your lesson, repeating throughout the day to remind yourself that every opportunity is a sacred opportunity. Every encounter is a holy encounter. So if we're prepared for that, then it's just like exercising, because you want to be able to run a certain speed. Well, you're not going to get to that speed by just walking out the door and starting to run if you haven't been running, right? You want to build it up. You build your strength. You build your stamina. It's the same thing with our spiritual practices. We're building up our stamina. We're building up our strength. We're building up our endurance, so that whatever happens, we respond to it with one of our spiritual tools from our spiritual toolbox. So the lessons now will move us further into prayerfulness and contemplation, a place of truly taking it to a higher level of dedication. And so that's where we are, and that's what we're doing. So when we get together next, it will be already sort of full swing into this first part of the lesson. So we want to start practicing right away. So let me give you some ideas of what we're looking at just for a few days. How's our time?
7:40.
7:40. It's amazing. Time just goes all zippy. So we just finished our last review. We're not going to have any more reviews for the rest of the rest of the year. So this will give you an idea of what we're looking at in lesson 221, which is on August 9th. It says, "Peace to my mind, let all my thoughts be still." Now every lesson starts with a prayer or ends with a prayer. The prayers are in italics. So you first thing in the morning, you read your lesson, it says, "Peace to my mind, let all my thoughts be still." So we take a moment to see how that feels, to just be in stillness, to feel the settling in of our ego's voice, just to sort of clear. Then we have this prayer. This is Father, Mother, I come to you today to seek the peace that you alone can give me. I come in silence. In the quiet of my heart, the deep recesses of my mind, I wait and listen to your voice. Speak to me today. I come to hear your voice in silence, in certainty and love. Sure, you will hear my call and answer me. Of course, tells us time and time again, just like that Sufi lesson. When we build the mansion, the angels surround it. The Course tells us time and time again, when we call out, we are heard. And then if we are truly silent, if we are truly at peace, we can hear the answer. And it's not like a voice that sounds like it's somebody calling out your name. It's just sort of a sense of things. It's an understanding of things. It's a knowing, a nudging. Ernesto's walking around. He's going to need a little airtime in a minute. So then it says, now do we wait in quiet? God is here because we wait together. We wait together. Who's talking? This is the author of the book is now joining us in our lessons, has stepped in to join us as a brother, as a true connected brother who wants to be with us in these final steps to the end. Jesus, the author, the brother, our divine, mystical, caring, loving brother is now joining us for the second half of the year in our practices. So he's now speaking. He says, now do we wait in quiet? I'm with you. God is here because we wait together. I am sure that he will speak to you and you will hear. Accept my confidence. Our minds are joined. We wait with one intent, to hear our Father answer our call, to let our thoughts be still and find his peace, to hear him speak to us of what we are and to reveal himself to his child. So now we have a partnership. We have a partnership with the author of this book because he has come to join us for the rest of the year in our lessons. The whole first year he was our teacher. He was telling us, these are your lessons, this is how you do it, this is why you do it, and now he's joined us. And so in doing our practices, we want to get a sense of that presence of having our loving, higher, holy self, brother, with us in our practices. Now I have my own way of visualizing Jesus because, I grew up Catholic, and went to Catholic school for many years, and so I always saw the suffering Jesus. That was the Jesus of my childhood. And then as I got older, I didn't really think too much about Jesus. I was traveling through all sorts of religions and experiences, and I didn't like the Jesus of the Christian movement of the time, and I had a hard time reconciling with the religion of my childhood. And then I started studying A Course in Miracles on and off for the past 30 years, but only really for the past probably 7 years I've been really truly dedicated, maybe 10 years. And during that time I started to see Jesus differently. I started seeing Jesus as a friend, as a brother, as an example of true kindness and caring, as an example of how I would rather be in the world, of who I'd rather be in the world. And so he's the mystical Jesus, but he's also kind of fun for me. I see him almost like I remember one time when I was much struggling with my concepts of Jesus, I was trying to reconcile like the old image with the new image that I'm trying to develop within myself. And it's kind of like he came to me in a sort of a playful way, almost like a cartoonish character. And I was like, Jesus, why are you cartoon? And he was like, that's how you see me. But it was like playful. It was fun. And I see him that way now. I see him as someone who doesn't want me to take things so seriously. And I like him. I like him. I love that he's joining us now. I have this other Jesus statue that Grace Telesco gave to me. Would you mind passing that to me? I appreciate it. Reminder, Krishna in the flute. And I know I got it all decorated. So I love this. Grace Telesco gave this as a gift to me for an anniversary. I think it was one of my anniversaries. And this is the meditating Jesus. This is just Jesus like in a prayerful, meditative mode. And you don't usually see this depicted, this Jesus. You don't see this Jesus depicted very often because I guess we don't think of Jesus as being the Easterner that he was, And so this prayerful Jesus is sitting with me in prayer. This prayerful Jesus is sitting with you. So when you do your morning practices, you can remember that you're not alone, that the author of this book, this Jesus, this friend, this brother, has reached his hand out to you. And he has said, in the CE edition of the book, where there's some more cameos where Jesus is actually talking with Helen Schuckman and giving more examples of how he sees his place in our lives, he says that he has never left the place that he holds for you. He has never left that place that he holds for you. It's like going to the grocery store with a loved one, right? And you're on the line, and all of a sudden you realize that, oh, you forgot the watermelon, and then like you go run off down to the aisle and get the watermelon, and your loved one is holding that space for you, right? And then you step right back into line. That's what this wonderful brother Jesus is doing, is holding a place for us to the point at which we turn around and say, oh, I get it now. I know what I have to do. I know how I have to be. I'm ready to rise to the occasion. I'm ready to pray harder, rise higher, love steadily, forgive readily, and take my place as a true vision of light, as a true instrument of peace, as a compassionate responder in the world. I'm ready to take my place. And Jesus is like, well, hey, I've been waiting for you. I'm right here. I haven't left. I'm right here. And don't bow before me. He says, do not bow before me. This is not the Christian of the Christ of typical traditional Christianity. He's not asking to be your savior. He's asking you to be a savior. He's not asking to be worshiped. He's asking to worship with you, to take his place with you. So that's what we're doing now. That's what we're doing. These next few lessons are going to be for us to move into this place of joining with our dear loving brother who's going to help us move further and further into our dedicated practices. Amen to that?
Amen.
Let's do that. So, all right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap it up now with another song. So, I need to take my place right here for a minute in the technology department. And it's a fun song, so it's actually like dancey, beaty, dance to the beat. So if you feel like dancing, dance where you are.
And Annette just said that her Jesus was a dancing Jesus.
Oh yeah, that's true. I actually had a little book that said that was about a dancing Jesus too, which is kind of fun. So if you wanna look on your own YouTube, this song is called Miracles. How about that? That's quite the coincidence. And it's by Colton Dixon.
If you're an investor or
But
have
first
even
of all,
thought about
we're
investing,
going to find out about
I think that's-
investments just for a second. We're just going to hear about that, and then we're going to skip it. Then we're going to see what else happens.
And you need to dance with Ernesto.
Ernesto and I will be dancing.
90 miles on the highway, every day moving so fast, taking all the wrong ways out. Never saw you coming, stopping me in my tracks, keeping me from the long way down. Doesn't matter just how many times I tried, there could only be a single reason why. So tell me, how do miracles just happen like that, happen like that, happen like that? You can see the stars align, but I know that it's more than timing. How do miracles just happen like that, happen like that, happen like that? Right before I hit the ground zone, how you came along and found me. Right before I hit the ground zone, how you came along and found me. Some will say it's magic, but I know that you did all that. You're the reason, there's no doubt. Doesn't matter just how many times I tried, there could only be a single reason why. So tell me, how do miracles just happen like that, happen like that, happen like that? You can see the stars align, but I know that it's more than timing. How do miracles just happen like that, happen like that, happen like that? Right before I hit the ground zone, how you came along and found me. Right before I hit the ground zone, how you came along and found me. There's no doubt when I feel it, call me crazy and out of touch, but I know that it's from above. Tell me, how do miracles just happen like that, happen like that, happen like that? You can see the stars align, but I know that it's more than timing. How do miracles just happen like that, happen like that, happen like that? Right before I hit the ground zone, how you came along and found me. You can see the stars align, but I know that it's more than timing. Right before I hit the ground zone, how you came along and found me.
Hey, were you dancing? I hope so.
Look,
So thank you all for being here. I hope you enjoyed the brief appearance of Ernesto as he did his little dance through. And as our final prayer for the evening, let me not wander from the way of peace, for I am lost on any other road than this. Let me follow him who leads me home, and then peace will be as certain as the love of God. Amen.
Amen.
God bless you. Thanks for being with me, with us, and we'll see you next week. Namaste.